Salutations! Today we are going to be doing a video on color basics. We will be learning about mixing, shading, and
highlighting.
Something called a color wheel, and this is going to be really helpful when you're like first starting out, or like always. I still use mine all the time on how to mix color. A color mixing wheel, and you can also just get a color wheel, or you can just go online and just Google it, and then you'll find a million color charts about mixing colors first. Now, this is going to be a little bit elementary for most of you, but for those, for those of you who are completely new to painting, this you might find helpful, and a lot of it you probably already know. We're just going to talk about primary colors right now, and the reason I'm starting this basic is because some people, it's important to know primary, secondary, and then we'll go on. Primary colors are the colors from which all other colors are made. And what are the primary colors?
Red, blue, and yellow.
I'm just kidding. Secondary colors are the result of mixing the primary color. Red and yellow, we will get
orange.
And if we mix yellow and blue, we'll get
green.
And if we mix blue and red, we will get
purple.
Violet. Also known as
purple.
Well,
our art teacher told us.
Well, your art teacher is wrong. Now we're going to be learning about intermediate colors. Okay?
Yeah.
It says if you were mixing one primary color and one secondary color, you would get a intermediate color. Okay?
Okay.
Mix red and orange, you get
red, orange.
If you mix yellow and green, you get
yellow, green, or green.
Yeah, that's right. That's my little artist girl. You know what it is. Okay. If you mix blue and violet, you get
blue, violet.
Yes. If you mix red and violet, you get
red, violet.
Very good. If you mix yellow and orange, you get
yellow, orange.
Wrong. I'm just kidding.
What? Wrong.
If you mix blue and green, you get
blue, green.
Okay.
Which is cute color.
It's one of my favorites too. Who would have guessed? Let's discuss color harmonies. Do you know about color harmonies?
No, I said no.
Do you know about color harmonies?
No.
Oh. You want to learn?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so really they're just complementary colors. Okay?
Oh, like do they
They complement each other.
Oh yeah,
they're like
about that.
You're a great color. No, you're a great color.
We did that.
No, you're a great color. No, you're the best color.
Jimin,
they're complementing colors. Get it?
We heard it.
They complement each other.
Yeah. We heard it actually this year, so we did learn that.
Awesome. Okay, so a complementary color is actually a color that is opposite on the color wheel, okay? All ready? So now we can list off our complementary colors.
Yay!
Yellow's complementary color is going to be violet. Green's complementary color is
orange.
Red, orange. Very good. Awesome. See, she can use it, you can use it. Yellow, green, what would be the complementary color?
Red, violet.
Very good. Very good. Red, violet. Blue, what would be its complementary color?
Orange.
That's cool, good. Oh, sorry. If we had green, what would its complementary color be?
Red. Just like Christmas.
That's right. Just like Christmas. If we had a blue, violet, what would a complementary color be?
Yellow, orange. Blue, violet,
Yeah, blue
Yellow,
violet.
orange.
Very good.
I said yellow.
I said very good. Oh, I was just making that noise because I felt like it because I'm fidgety. I'm fidgety today.
She's like,
Chicken and
I don't want to.
I will get into triadic harmony. Now, what do you think that is?
I have
Try.
try.
Try. Like a triangle. What would that be? What would that mean? Try. What would that mean? How many points does a triangle have?
3.
Very good. So that means colors spaced equally apart on the color wheel. So what would that, I'm not going to go through all of them, but can you give me one example? Maybe try yellow.
Oh, it went yellow, blue, green, red, orange. I'm not sure what my spell is.
Yeah, something like that. That's right.
Or is it red, violet, blue, and yellow? Because that will make it pink.
Yes.
So it was
What would make a perfect triangle?
these colors.
Yeah, if you drew a triangle, what would it look like? Yeah, that's right.
I'm smart gas.
You are. Something called split complementary colors. What do you think that is?
They give each other sports.
Yep, that's right. So what that means is it's the color with the two colors right next to it on the color wheel. Those would be the split complementary colors. Okay, so enough of the basics on how to use our color wheel. Also, when you're using complementary colors, that's really helpful when you're mixing colors. When you're using complementary color, or when you're using a color wheel, this is actually really helpful because when you're mixing your colors, and if you know the undertone, it can, make the color or break the color. We talk about tints, tones, and shades. So how to lighten a color or how to darken a color is essentially what we're talking about, shading. But I'll do a whole video just on shading and actually paint so you can kind of see that come alive, because otherwise just explaining that doesn't work. This you can kind of explain because it's just information that's helpful to have. Okay, so if you want to lighten a color like blue, you would just add white and that would make light blue, right? And if you want to deepen that color, if you're shading, you can add black, but I don't necessarily like doing that to deepen a color. This is where like undertones come in really handy. To deepen a color, you can do that by adding black, but usually I kind of steer away from doing that. That can muddy your palette sometimes. You can make natural black, and a lot of time if you're not doing if you're doing realism and you're not doing abstract painting, by all means just add black to the color to deepen it. But if you're doing realism, I always like to use a natural black, but it also depends on the color. Like let's say you had a blue, well, you're not gonna wanna add, you can add black to make that darker, but adding something like a red into the blue, is going to, depending on the undertone, this is where this is really important, will deepen your color. Or let's say you had yellow, what would you add to yellow to deepen it? You probably want to add, depending on what you're doing, right, you're going to want to add red. You're not going to want to add blue because that would make green. You don't want green, right? You wouldn't want green.
Make the color darker.
To give it more depth.
How much red would you use?
Well, that's where color recipes come in really handy, or knowing how much to add. Like one of these will tell you how much to add. It'll tell you the ratio. So the ratio, let's say, that's what is probably the most important, knowing the undertones and knowing the ratios. That was a really great question. So you would just look that up if you haven't been painting for a really long time. And that actually kind of leads us into our next sort of subject here, and it is the color recipe.
Sounds like a video.
What? So I'm glad you asked that question because it actually gives me a little segue. not a segue ride, but helps me get into the next subject, is color recipes. And this is how to know how to mix the colors. I would get into, undertones, but I'm not sure we have enough time for that. That would take me, I'll do a more updated video on this. Eventually I'll do a whole video on the undertones and I can show you a couple recipes, but for now we're just going to keep it really simple since I know the people that have been following these are pretty much all beginners. How would you remember, like if you mixed a color and you loved that color, how would you remember that recipe? Make your own color chart, make a recipe book for your paint. Take a piece of paper. I do have one, but it's buried away. What you're going to do is just take any old piece of,
What was that?
scratch paper. It was a bug. take a piece of, it doesn't have to be, it can just be regular paper and like a sketch pad. And actually paint the color and then write your recipe next to that. So you don't have to keep going online and looking it up. You'll just have it in your big book of colors. And I actually think organizing it, like by blues, reds, is the best way to go, by color. Organizing it by color. So have a page of blues, have a page of greens, have a page
First, draw
of
a
greens.
rainbow.
Yeah. And then draw a rainbow. My primary place that I usually go to is WikiHow. I like their, sometimes I check Pinterest, but that's gotten just flooded with weird stuff on there. And then my other place is justmixit.org. I think that's a really great place. Why are you giving yourself a beard? Okay, and then, yeah, like I said, make sure if you are mixing these and they're not primary colors, make sure you check the undertone. So, if you're using phthalo blue or if you're using ultramarine blue, make sure you check like what the undertone of that is. So ultramarine blue, that is going to have a red undertone, and a lot of the time it kind of pulls gray when you mix it with like the wrong color, so you have to be really careful of that. Or phthalo blue, I'm not sure what you're doing there, but that seems to kind of go with more. That's one of my favorites to use for like if I'm mixing colors. It's usually phthalo blue. Okay, so the colors, like if you're going out and buying paint and you want to know what paint should I go out and purchase, and what tubes of paint, not necessarily the brand, just literally like the color. You always want to have titanium white. That is the most important, I think, to have. Can you stop? For real. Okay. So then another important one to me to have is Mars Black and Permanent Black, or Mars Black to me isn't as pigmented as Permanent Black, so I actually like having Permanent Black better than Mars Black, which most people always do Mars Black. For me, it's not for me. I like, it's a shade of black. It's not essential to have that because you can mix something called the natural black where you mix a few different colors together that will give you...
Somebody took Mars Black.
It's really not black. It would be a deep brown because black is not a color. It's a shade. I always like to have primary red on hand. I think that's a really important kind of shade. Now that's not really going to be a super deep... it's going to come across like pink or like magenta when you're painting, and that's where you would add the, you would either add red or blue into that to make it deeper or cool or warm tones, which I completely skipped over. the tone, the warm or cool tone. On most color charts, it'll show you whether it's a cool or a warm tone. So, I would say more like, obviously blue is going to be cooler and red is going to be usually warmer. So, depending on, but you can have a warm tone red or a cool toned red. And a cool toned red would have like blue in it to make it cool. Do you get what that means? Okay, cool. I'm glad I'm explaining myself well. So anyway, I'm getting off subject. So I recommend having a primary red. I recommend having all primary at first. That's just what I started out with. So if you can't afford to go get all these other ones, just buy primary yellow, primary red, and primary blue. Because with those you can make anything.
And get white and black.
Yeah, white. Well, even that, titanium white is the most important, I think. Even, you know, if you can't afford the black, mix them all together and make a brown. I'm just kidding. You can make a natural black even with just primaries. Like how deep the tone is of that. Quinacridone red, I don't always keep that. I'm more of a crimson type of red or primary red. I do like cadmium red as well. But you don't have to have all of them. Just try to have a cool and a warm tone, and if you don't, you could just add blue, you know, to make it warm, or yellow to make it, you know, a cooler. Anyway, yellow is pretty easy. I usually only have primary yellow and then yellow ochre. And the reason I always keep yellow ochre is because it's really, for me, to mix that color like authentically and have the right color is really hard for me, because it's such a warm, it's almost like a mustardy kind of warm color. I wouldn't even attempt to mix it. I would just keep it on hand, especially if you're doing a lot of like a nature like scapes. Those are like landscape painting.
Oh.
It's really important to have that. And also if you're doing portrait painting, if you're painting people. Cheers. Isn't this cute? It's copper. The lady I used to work for got it for me for Christmas, and then she died.
Mom, that's a little like morbid.
I know, it's really sad. Okay, so for blue, I recommend, like I said, primary. Ultramarine blue and phthalo blue. And those are the only blues I usually have. I don't usually keep any other blues. Anyway, I think that's probably all. Do you have anything you want to add?
Yes, my beauty.
Okay, so this will be like our first video. I think we'll do a little series on this color theory, and then our next one we'll kind of actually sit down. I'll sit down and show you how to make yourself a color chart, not a wheel, like a recipe book for acrylic paint. I'll show you how to do that, and we'll talk about like undertones. We'll talk about how to, you know, different recipes that I've used to get certain colors. We can even talk about how to make your colors more brilliant by using like contrasting colors and doing underpaintings, and we can really dive deep into this subject. We'll do that when we're alone though. Yeah. All right, well, thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you learned a little bit. I know this was a very primary lesson, but some people don't know color basics, so I thought it'd be really helpful. My next video isn't going to be the color, it's not going to be the next color video. I actually already started on it. It's going to be basic techniques and just acrylic basics in general. So we'll probably actually be sitting down painting for that one, just with a, you know, kind of just like a scratch piece of paper. And I'll talk about brushes. I'll talk about, you know, like I said, different techniques. We can get into a little bit of shading. I can kind of go over like a basic, like what, if you were starting painting, like a beginner's, acrylic beginner's painting kit type of thing. I'll tell you what to get, what brushes I use the most and find the most helpful. I really wish I had a video like that when I first started painting. That would have been awesome. But anyway, so that will be our next video. Please give us a like and a thumbs up if you learned anything. Drop us a comment. Tell me how adorable my daughter is flicking you guys off and picking your nose at the same time.
Oh, God.
And yeah, and please subscribe if
Love
you
it.
want to learn more about acrylic painting
Love it,
and
Kaya.
how absolutely crazy my kid is. Awesome.
Bye, guys. Like this video, subscribe. Be sure to hit that notification bell or else you're not going to see us on the screen.
I think they're going to not hit it because they don't want to see the
Let's take our...
Hey Nate, you want to come say hi? Come say hi.
Hi.
Come in here.
Now watch me whip.
This is Nathan,
Now watch me
my husband.
whip.
Say hi.
Hi.
Tell them one fact about yourself.
My name's Nate.
Bye.
Bye.
That's funny.
Bye, salutations.
Salutations!
And to me, love spray paint.
Doesn't she look just like her dad?
Screenshot.
Oh my god, I wasn't taping the whole time. I'm kidding. Today, we are here with another video. Let's see up my nose.
No.
Okay, so what's in my face? What's in my face?
There's boogers a little bit.
Oh, white, right? Glad white. Okay. That's just really disturbing, Nathan. Okay, so if you want to lighten a color,
I just
Like a-
shit my pants.
okay. It's like a frantic
This is
gerbil.
very